So let's just pretend for a minute that the SCVs in Starcraft have had enough. They're just sick and tired of going back and forward, and they want a piece of the action too. Well, today, Jim Raynor is giving the Marines a break and putting the boys on the front line so that we can answer the question, can you beat Starcraft 2 Wings of Liberty with only SCVs? The rules are, as soon as I start a mission, I have to kill off all of my units. There are some tutorials at the start of missions, they don't count because you don't have SCVs. And this also doesn't count for the 2 missions where you're controlling Raynor and Nova. Other than that, the only units I can build throughout the whole game are SCVs. But it's not all hopeless because I can build turrets and stuff, so sit back, relax, and watch this journey unfold. So let's get right on into the first mission for this challenge, the Outlaws. So straight away I start to kill off all of my Marines because I'm not allowed to use them for the challenge. Raynor tells me to build some Marines at the barracks, but he can't tell me what to do. So I just built as many command centers as possible. When I felt like I had enough workers, I decided to move out. Minx had no idea what was coming for him, beating the Dominion with not firepower, but sheer confusion. After some epic SCV micro, and about 100 SCVs killing his base, I beat the first mission, and on to the next one I went. Going into this mission, I didn't expect it to be as hard as it was. Let's just say, SCVs aren't the best at killing Zerglings, but once I massed up a good number of them to hold off the Zerg, it seemed to be a bit easier, and also doing the good old mineral trick helped. Once I felt safe enough, I went to go and save the Marines, with them probably being confused as hell as why SCVs had come to save them. The rest of the mission was pretty straightforward. I just had to survive wave after wave, making sure my SCVs are actually attacking and not repairing each other instead. But at the end of the mission, my base was pretty much destroyed. So I just floated my command centers over to the side of the map until the timer ran out. Luckily, Matt came in to save us at the end. Not that there was anything left to save. But that was the mission 0 hour complete, and on to the next mission, the evacuation, where you have to escort a bunch of colonists to the ship. And if you've played this mission before, then you probably know that there's not much to do except wait around. I learned that you can light trees on fire in this game, which is fun. I'm sure the colonists were terrified when they saw there was only SCVs that had come to save them. I found out that the SCVs can actually repair the convoy, which is pretty helpful. And I don't think anyone would have known that unless they were trying to do something like this. But I ended up doing the bonus objective, and then that was this mission done. And on to the next level, which is smash and grab. I immediately sent my Marines and my medic away to get poked to death by a spine crawler. I was a bit worried going into this mission, because you are on a timer. And the enemies that you've got to kill at the end do splash damage, which isn't very good news for my SCVs. But I just had to defend against a few attacks, and when I felt like I had enough workers, I decided to move out. Unfortunately, SCVs can't shoot, so I just had to wait until the sentries ran out of energy before I moved forward here. I don't know why, but watching my SCVs hug these sentries to death made me realize how ridiculous this challenge is. I then destroyed a Protoss base, and then behold, another bridge with sentries. So I just did the bonus objective while I waited, and then I was on to the boss fight. I saved the game just before I went in, just in case I died. I was confused as hell as to why everyone was trying to repair this one SCV, but I wasn't going to ask questions. Once I got in, the Tal'Darim were no match for my death ball of SCVs. Once I got a surround, there wasn't much helping them. Though I did lose a lot of workers in the epic battle, that was this mission done. Once I got back to the Hyperion, I upgraded the bunkers so that they get this little turret, which will help me out a lot in the future missions. And on to the next mission, Outbreak. This is the mission where you need to defend against the infested at night and kill their structures during the day. Really quickly, I tried to do this mission without the bunker upgrade. I thought maybe if I block off all of the entrances with my buildings and then repair them until morning, I might have a chance, but it didn't work out very well. I just thought I might include all of my losses in here as well because as overpowered as the SCV is, this is no easy challenge. So I gave it another shot with the bunker upgrade this time. And so first things first, I roasted my Marines and my medics, and then straight away I started to get my defense up. And though these little turrets on the bunkers are pretty cool, they don't really do that much damage, as I would find out in future missions. It helps leaving a few SCVs next to them with auto repair turned on, and it ended up surviving the first night with ease. In the morning I moved out, and the boys started to go to town on the infested structures, while at the same time at home, I started to mass up my command centers and build up my defense even more. For some reason the boys started to do ring around the rosy here, but I was not having it. This is a pretty long mission, but I just set up a couple control groups of SCVs to make it go a bit faster, and being poked to death by a spine crawler's tentacle is no fun, so I focused them before anything else. Eventually I had cleared out almost all of the infested structures, but I wanted to do the bonus objective as well, so I destroyed every building except one, and then waited until night, so I can kill both of the infestors and then end the mission. The Devil's Playground is the next mission on the list, where you've just got to gather resources basically, and defend against a few attacks. I just had to make sure I didn't lose any of my SCVs to the lava. And because I can build only SCVs, gathering the 7,000 minerals to complete the mission isn't too hard, but I still had to do the bonus objective. The bonus objective up the top here gave me 5 SCVs and a command center, which is perfect for what I'm trying to do. I used the command center to drop an SCV on the high ground to get their minerals up here, and then I just kept on mining resources until I felt like it was time to kill the Brutalisk. The Brutalisk was just minding his own business until my flock of SCVs came in to kill him. He wasn't even attacking me much, he was probably just in shock as to what was happening to him. After I killed him, I just sent the boys back to mining. I defended against a few Ling attacks, and just had to make sure I didn't die from the lava. I randomly found some Reapers up here, but unfortunately I couldn't use them. And then I just used the command center as a dropship again to get the last few minerals on the high ground here. And then that was the end of the mission. So because I've been gathering all the research while at the same time doing this ridiculously hard challenge, I'm able to afford this fire turret thing, which is actually really strong, but I wouldn't find out how strong it actually is until a few missions later. The next level is Welcome to the Jungle, where I'm just going to go for the standard strategy where you just kill off your whole army and make SCVs. So I remembered with this mission there used to be some pretty hard attack waves that attack your base. So I got my defense up first and got my new little flame turret as well. And so for this mission, all that you have to do is collect these terrazine canisters and bring them back to your base. So I sent my squad of SCVs to go collect the first canister, which was pretty easy. Kept on building command centers for optimal SCV production. So I realized that there's air units in this mission, so I had to build bunkers, and I found a pretty cool strategy where you can sort of use your SCVs to lure the enemy in and then let your bunker kill it. So I cleared out the enemies as to where these next 2 terrazine canisters are, and then built up a little defense, because the enemies will try and kill your SCVs when they're trying to harvest the terrazine. But I ended up surviving and started moving on to the next area. Pretty much rinse and repeat, set up a defense while I harvest the terrazine. And I figured I should build some turrets too, because there's a lot of enemies that come after you, and the turrets in the campaign are actually sick. They like shoot these multiple missiles and it does so much damage. So I collected the terrazine and started taking it back to my main base, and started heading towards the last 2 canisters. At this point I had a ton of SCVs, and I had pretty much perfected my strategy. I got one of them and started heading up towards the last canister and my last Protoss research. I figured it'd be a lot easier to send a few SCVs on a suicide mission to go get it, so that they can save the lives of their brothers. It got a little bit hairy collecting the last one, but I pulled it off, except when my SCV started to bring it home, he decided to go straight through the middle of the Protoss's base like an idiot. But what's even worse is that now the canister's in the middle of a Protoss's base, so I started to panic a little bit and sent every single SCV I had to go and retrieve it. After many casualties, a hero SCV came forth and reharvested the terrazine, and escaped with about 5 HP remaining. He returned it and I was all done, but my god, was I in for a surprise with this next level. So I'm up to the mission Safe Haven. You know, the mission where you either get to purify or protect the colony, and where no matter what you choose, the chick still gets infested? Well, I chose to purify the colony, where you just have to kill off a handful of infested bases. But the thing is that they're protected by broodlords, and SCVs aren't the best at killing them. But I had a plan. Set up right outside the infested base and lure the broodlords out into my turrets to kill them. And though it did take a few load saves, I did end up destroying the first base. But it was already 20 minutes into the game and I was starting to run out of minerals. So I got the boys to start going mayhem on the next base and start to take over it. But you see, the thing about this mission is that the enemies are relentlessly attacking your base, and you end up spending more money on repairing your bunkers than what you're actually mining. So I ended up taking over all of the infested bases with resources first, and in the end I ended up mining out the whole entire map. So yeah, I ran out of money and couldn't kill any more infested structures. And just as I thought this challenge was over, I had an idea. I would go way back to a load save and choose Protect the Colony and see if this mission will be doable. Either way, our smoking hot scientist friend is going to get turned into a Zerg, so it doesn't really matter. So here's my second attempt at Safe Haven. So what's different about this mission is you've only got 3 bases that you have to take over. You still get attacked sometimes in this mission, but it's so much better not having infested Terrans attacking you non-stop, and not being able to build on Zerg's creep was pretty annoying too. Seeing the Protoss obliterate a colony really triggered me. I knew something had to be done, and I had faith in my SCVs that they could save everyone. So after I made a bit of a defense, I started to move towards the first Protoss base. And kind of like the mission where you collect terrazine, I lured some of the air units into my turrets to kill them. The Phoenix here seemed to be be having fun just making my SCV float, so I took the opportunity to move into the base with some more static defense. One really good thing about having bunkers is you can salvage them for 100% of your minerals back, so I used it a fair bit doing this challenge. Anyways, I ended up taking out the first Protoss base without too much of a problem, so I quickly started to move towards the second base. This mission is still a bit tricky because you're on a timer to kill off all of the Protoss's bases before the mothership obliterates all of the colonies, so there wasn't much time to spare. So I started to set up a defense outside of the base like normal, and I was going to rush in with all of my SCVs, but then I saw the Protoss had Colossus, so I got a bit freaked out and retreated into the safety of my defense. I keep forgetting, but turrets can actually shoot Colossus, so I ended up taking them out pretty easily with them. But once both of the Colossus were dead, it was pretty easy to secure this location. Anyways, for the final base, they had a pretty solid defense with carriers and Archon and stuff. After I kill off some of the units, I saw opportunity where I could just snipe the Nexus and then get out of there. After killing the bases, the next objective is to kill off the mothership before it reaches the last colony. I started to panic a little bit, but I set up as many turrets as I could in the pathway towards the next colony. So when the mothership flew over, it just did not stand a chance. Even though I was pretty low on resources and I only just had enough turrets. But that was this mission completed. This was one of the funnest missions I had done so far. I don't know, it made me think that maybe, just maybe, this challenge is possible. The Great Train Robbery is the next mission to beat. In this level, you simply just have to destroy some trains before they reach their destination. So I started off by building as many bunkers as I could along the train line, while sending an SCV out to get the mineral pickups scattered around the map. I would go ahead and do the bonus objective, which is to collect these 3 Zerg research and to locate 6 diamondbacks, but obviously I would not be using them. Unfortunately, I started to run into a problem. No matter how efficient I was at gathering resources at the start and setting up as many turrets as possible, I just could not seem to kill these trains in time. After many restarts, I began to think that this challenge was over, but after messing around for a bit, I discovered that the flame turrets do a lot more damage than the bunker turrets, which didn't really make sense to me at first because, like Hellions, I thought the flame turrets only did extra damage to light units. So with this newfound knowledge, I decided to give it another shot. So I surrounded the tracks and flame turrets and I was finally able to kill some trains. Things started to snowball pretty quickly because when you kill a train, they drop minerals, which then allows me to build even more turrets, which then allows me to kill the trains even quicker. I ended up finishing all of the bonus objectives and found the last diamond back. I was a bit worried with the last wave because they had units escorting the train, but I just got my SCVs to help out a bit and it went pretty smoothly. So there we go, there's another mission ticked off the list. Back at the Hyperion, I went into the armory and realized I had a SCV upgrade, which allows multiple SCVs to construct the same building. So I got that and then started the next mission, Cutthroat. So basically for this mission, you have to gather more minerals than Orlins for Mira. Mira tries to give me some vultures as a present, but I had to respectfully decline. I started to make my way around the map and gather all of the salvage I could, along with some Protoss research. I started to make my way up north and take over this top base, which would help me gather even more resources. Continued to defend against some attacks. I witnessed a single SCV take out a tank, which is not something you see every day. I also started to make my way towards the top left because I remembered that after you gather all of the minerals, you have to take out a Terran base up there. So I completed the first part of the mission without too much of a problem, which was to gather all of the minerals. I wanted to start setting up some turrets and stuff towards the base up the top here, but there's siege tanks and they do a lot of damage. So I just backed off a bit and started to gather a bit of an army. I still couldn't seem to push towards the base up the top there, but I saw his tanks were unsieged here, so I took the opportunity and went in for the kill. With the siege tanks dealt with, his defense was pretty weak. I grouped my forces together and went for it, putting down some missile turrets as well because I remembered there was a couple battle cruisers at the top here in this mission. So yeah, I dealt with a fairly strong army and then killed these battle cruisers, and then I made my way up to the top. I had barely any SCVs left at the end, but I went for a nice surround around the planetary and ended the mission. Starting the next mission called Engine of Destruction. This is the mission where Tiger steals the Odin, and you just have to protect him and take out some bases. I want to see if it's possible for 2 Marines to kill each other at the same time. Fun fact, it's not. After killing my Marines, some Wraiths fly in, which they want you to use for this mission, so I just quickly killed them off too. The Odin started to move towards the first base, so I just kept some SCVs with him. and made sure to keep repairing them. Eventually he took over another base, which I took the opportunity to fly my command center over there and start mining from it. These Reapers got upset and started throwing rocks at my base, so I took care of them. I defended against a few attacks, and this is definitely one of the easier missions. All that you have to do really is make sure that you keep the Odin alive, although this was a pretty strong attack, but I ended up holding it off. So I just kept on repairing, and I eventually escorted the Odin to the last base here, where he drops a nuke and ends the mission, so pretty easy level this one. Back at the Hyperion, I ended up getting an upgrade which allows all of my structures to repair themselves for up to 50% life, and I also bought the upgrade which allows my SCVs to repair twice as fast. So we are on to the next mission, which is called the Dig. This is where you need to defend the laser drill, which is trying to break through the Excel Naga temple door. So you need to defend against a bunch of Protoss attacks. So I started to set up a defense and took the expansion down in the bottom right, pretty much like you would normally, except they'd want you to use siege tanks in this mission. I got some SCVs to face off with the photon cannon, so I can go and grab the Protoss research, which is over here. My flame turrets absolutely melted these zealots, so my defense was pretty strong. There's not too much to do in this mission, there's a lot of waiting. So I decided to drop my SCVs up on the high ground here, so they can make a cute little base for themselves up there. A fun fact you might not have known in Starcraft and in Starcraft 2 is, if you look really closely, the missile turrets actually have a person in them controlling them. But yeah, I already got plenty of missile turrets around my base, because I remembered that there's some drops and stuff that try and come into your base. As the mission goes on, the attack waves start to get harder and harder, but my defense was pretty strong and I just made sure to keep repairing everything. So yeah, I just sat back and continued to watch the Protoss eat themselves into my turrets. I eventually survived, and that was this mission done. So I had a feeling that the missions are going to start to get a lot harder. I'm only one more Protoss research away from getting the ability to make 2 SCVs at a time, so that will help out a lot. So I'm now on to the mission Media Blitz. And I thought this was going to be a run killer, this mission, because for some reason I thought you had to take out all of the Dominion structures within a certain amount of time. But turns out you just have to capture these 3 communication towers, but they're in the middle of a Dominion base. So to start off the level, they want you to kill off a bunch of Dominion with the Odin, but Tigers hasn't figured out the controls yet. So he's just walking around like a headless chicken, and the Dominion ends up taking him out. So now it's up to my SCVs to complete the mission for everyone. I started by getting an engineering bay to get the armor upgrade for my SCVs. I don't know why I wasn't getting it before. I guess I just thought it only counted for infantry units. I started to set up a bit of defense, and I got some missile turrets because I remembered that some air units come in for attack waves. And so I started to make my way over to the right side of the map where there's a base which I can take over. I don't know what the hell this thing was, but I decided to kill it. I eventually took over this base to the right, but my SCV count was a bit too low to start doing the objectives, so I just had to wait around a bit and build up a bit of defense. I took out this light pole here to show dominance and strike fear into my enemy. I also made an example of this tree. All jokes aside, I didn't know that you can actually destroy some of these things on the map. And just looking at all of the tiny little details, like this blimp which is advertising nuke noodles. I mean, I'm only playing on medium graphics at the moment, but I feel like this game was way ahead of its time and had an amazing level of detail. So I gathered a bit of an SCV force and made my way up this ramp, making my way towards the first broadcast tower, but these bases are pretty heavily defended. I did end up capturing it, but my SCVs unfortunately did not make it. By this point I had a ton of SCVs and command centers, and so I gathered the boys and started making my way up to the top. I started getting attacked by a tank, so I just popped down a bunker to deal with it. Luckily the tank didn't mind. I started to move into this area to take over the base and capture the second broadcast tower. There's a lot of tanks around, which makes it pretty difficult, but with some pro level SCV splits it wasn't too much of a problem. I do need to be pretty careful and cost efficient because, like the mission Safe Haven, it is possible to run out of minerals. So I captured the broadcast tower and started to set up a bit of a base here. Moving forward towards the last broadcast tower, I had over 100 army supply of SCVs at this point. This definitely had to be one of the most epic SCV battles I've had so far, but the boys pulled through and I finally completed the mission. The Mobius factor is up next. So the objective of this mission is to kill off 3 of these data core buildings here, and we need to reach them before Kerrigan does. So the first thing I noticed starting up this mission is that they cranked up the saturation to the highest. The colors are so bright and vivid, it was a little bit blinding when I was playing it at 12 o'clock at night, but all in all I think it looks really cool. Anyways, to start this mission off we have some marine reinforcements. I just had to be careful and make sure that I took control of them before they attacked anything. These poor Marines, man, that were running from the Zerg, honestly, they would have had a better chance at living if they were running in the opposite direction. Another random thing I found out is SCVs actually repair themselves when they're in bunkers. Anyways, I loaded up all of the Marines that survived and sent them into a spore crawler. They want you to use medevacs on this mission, but we can't use them for this challenge. Luckily, I've got command centers, so I loaded up the first squad of boys and started to fly towards the first tower. When I got there, I dropped them off so that they can start building some turrets, making sure to build flame turrets because they do a lot more damage. Back at home, I started to mass up some more dropships, and then once I took out the first tower, I started to move towards the second one. The second I dropped my SCVs off here, I started to get attacked. It was very close, but I ended up building a flame turret here, only just before it died. The Zerg then started attacking my SCVs, but my SCV micro is unreal at this point. I had loads of SCVs and command centers at this point, so I loaded up a couple more and flew them over to help out. After killing off some Zerg, I started to attack the second data core tower. Unfortunately, I can't build on creeps, so it was all up to the SCVs to take it out. With the help of some reinforcements, the SCVs eventually destroyed it. Then with my fleet of command centers, I picked everyone up and started to fly towards the last data core. On my way over there was a lot of hydras and spore crawlers trying to shoot me down, but with some quick thinking, I dropped off some SCVs on the high ground and repaired the command centers on the way over there. I then found a spot on the map where there wasn't any creep to drop my SCVs off and build a turret. I almost forgot to do the bonus objective, which was to kill the Brutalisk, so I just sent a command center filled with SCVs over there, where I just set up a flame turret to take it out with some SCVs repairing it. Conveniently, there was a spot right here next to the last data core where I could build a turret. There was a lot of Zerg coming in trying to stop me, but I had enough of a defense and enough SCVs here to stay safe. Eventually, I took out the last data core along with the Brutalisk, and that was this mission done. On to the next mission, which is called Supernova. The objective of this mission is to take out this Protoss structure, but I need to be somewhat fast because the planet's being lit on fire. But that wasn't even the hard part. The hard part is the lack of minerals they give you in this mission. I was just finding it really difficult to take over the first Protoss' base because there's cannons, immortals, colossus and sentries and everything that is killing my poor SCVs. So it did take quite a few restarts to get the hang of. So I started off by luring this zealot and this stalker into my bunker to take them out. I salvaged my bunker and then rebuilt it instead of repairing it, just to save a few minerals because every last mineral counts in this mission. I then continued to clear out some more enemies around the map, while at the same time defending at home. I need to use SCVs to kill off some of the enemies, not just bunkers, otherwise I'm just using up too many minerals repairing them. So this is the hard part. So basically my strategy was to make a bunker in range of this cannon and use my barracks for vision on the high ground. Now the goal is to take out the cannon and then focus the immortal right after, while at the same time trying to get some damage done to the zealots and stalkers with my SCVs. Also while defending an attack and expanding to the next base. I also quickly threw down an engineering base so that I can build flame turrets. So I got one of those as soon as I had the minerals. I then quickly went in with whatever SCVs had survived to build a bunker to take out the cannons and the last enemies. I then took out the Nexus with everything that I had, and then finally take over the base. After that I sent out 5 brave SCVs to go get the Protoss research, then continued moving forward towards the objective. There's another expansion here which is nice, but the mineral patches on this map do not have much left in them at all. Never in my life I thought I'd see the SCVs killing an Archon, but I guess there's a first for everything. Moving forward, I set up outside the next base and used my barracks for high ground vision again. I had 1,000 minerals in the bank, so I took this opportunity to just go for it. This was actually one of the most intense SCV battles I've ever seen, making sure to slap down some missile turrets to take out the air, and putting down a flame turret to try and take down some of the ground units. Unfortunately, I ran out of minerals to repair with, so the boys had to get a bit hands-on. In the end, as you can see, I think I had only just had enough. So I took out the last cannon and the last enemies here, as well as 2 more immortals, and then took over the base so I could start getting an income again. At this point, I'm almost at the objective. I set up on the low ground and had my barracks for high ground vision again. I saw a bunch of reinforcements coming, so I chucked down a flame turret to take them out as soon as I could. I started building a bunker here, but then I was like, what the hell, I can just lure these Archons in to get melted by my flame turret. At this point, I was getting closer and closer to victory, so I quickly popped in here to get the last Protoss research, and then moved forward to start taking out the objective. The High Templar here weren't even attacking me. They were probably in shock as to how my SCVs even made it this far. I can't blame them, I'm pretty shocked myself. This was a pretty difficult level, but I destroyed the objective, which was a artifact vault, and finished the mission. Back at the Hyperion is so good to see it. I have finally unlocked the double SCV production for my command centers. Man, this is really going to help out a ton, I can just tell. And I also bought the orbital command upgrade from the armory. The next mission is called Maw of the Void, where I just have to destroy a Protoss structure called the Exelnaga Vault on the other side of the map. Except it's surrounded by force fields, which does damage to your units and structures over time. So just like every other mission, there's attack waves that come in and attack your base, so I got a bit of a defense up. And your starting base is on the island, so it looks like we'll have to do our dropship tactics. So I took all of my command centers filled with SCVs up the top to avoid the photon cannons to take over the space over here. But taking out the force field thing is a priority because it constantly does damage to your units. So I dropped all of my boys off here and took out all of the enemies and the force field tower thing. When I'm inside the force field, I just need to make sure to let my SCVs repair themselves every now and then to keep themselves alive. So I successfully secured this base. I guess my SCVs were feeling brave and decided to take on a photon cannon here, but I wasn't impressed. So my first strategy was to take out the force fields one by one and slowly make my way to the vault. So I took out the first one, and I even got as far as taking out the second one with enough patience and some MLG SCV micro with a command center. That's not something you see every day. But this strategy was not viable, so I had to go back to a load save and find a better way. It was so obvious, just load up all of the command centers that I can and fly on the very edge of the map, avoiding all of the enemies and go straight for the vault. Also, I don't think it's possible to do the bonus objective, which is to free these High Templars here. Maybe I could free them if I put a bunker on the edge, but I don't think it would be in range. Anyways, things started to get a little hairy on the way over there. I eventually got there okay and unloaded the boys to start getting to work. Luckily, the bunker turret can reach the vault from the low ground here. Unfortunately, I wasn't efficient enough and I ended up running out of minerals to repair my stuff with. The vault only had about 50 HP remaining, so I had a 500 IQ idea to take it out with mules. But to my surprise, mules can't actually attack, so let's go back and try that again. This attempt went a lot smoother. I just made sure to get a couple bunker turrets up quickly and made them focus down the vault straight away. A mothership ended up popping out of the vault to witness the phenomenon of the uprise of the SCVs. She tried to stop us, but there wasn't too much she could do. I ended up destroying the vault and ending the mission. So this is the first mission on Char called the Gates of Hell, which means there's only a few more missions left, and I have a feeling they're going to be pretty hard. This mission is definitely the hardest mission I've attempted so far, and you will soon find out why. Firstly, I got my static defense up and used my barracks and a couple supply depots as a bit of a wall to keep me safe. First objective they give you is to build up 100 army supply. By army I assume they meant SCVs. Part 2, the general crashes his ship over here and we have to go take out 3 Nidus worms. Plan A was to rush in with the army of SCVs I made and snipe them, but these later missions are not like the earlier ones, but it was worth a shot anyways. So then my plan B was to transport all of my SCVs over to General Warfield with my trusty dropship strategy and pick off the Nidus worms one by one, trying to lure the Zerg into the bunkers here. But the second a Zerg unit dies, another one just comes out of the Nidus, so I thought this was basically impossible to take them out this way. The problem is that I can't build on creep, so it really makes this a lot harder. I even tried to build a turret on the high ground here, but it literally did nothing. But it looks like I'd have to go for my plan B, which was to slowly creep my way through all of the Zerg and maybe try surround the Nidus worms with some bunkers and stuff. I found out a really good way to get these mineral pickups by scanning and then dropping a mule on top of them to get them. So I ended up taking over this kind of expansion base over here, and then I just started inching my way through all of the Zerg, eventually getting to a point where I took over this base. So now I have literally mined every single mineral on the map. But of course I ran into a problem. I don't know why, but the creep was just not receding in this area. There wasn't any creep tumors wherever I scanned. I even went as far as taking out all of the Zerg buildings and even the spore crawlers on the high ground to see if that would make a difference. But no, it looks like there's permanent creep here for some reason. So it looks like it's back to the drawing board. I went back to my original plan, which was to try and take out the Nidus worms from over here. But this time I wouldn't make as many command centers and just try and produce an army of SCVs out of my command centers from over here to save minerals. I would also sacrifice my base on the left and salvage every single bunker I had just for the few extra minerals. Also, when I'm making SCVs, I put them on hold position as soon as possible, otherwise they start repairing General Warfield's bunkers, which wastes minerals. So it wasn't too hard to take out the first Nidus worm on the left because it's a bit further away from all of the Zerg enemies, but it still takes out a ton of SCVs, like 50 SCVs or more, because units are constantly streaming out of the Nidus worm. So when it came down to the last 2 Nidus worms on the right, things were looking pretty bad. I just made as many SCVs as I could, leaving about 200 to 400 minerals for repairing during the fight. Also, I was lying on the mission Supernova. This is actually the most epic SCV battle I've ever seen. Also, I would add this little group of SCVs down the bottom here to a hotkey and time it just right so that they could join in on the bloodbath. But yeah, I was starting to think it was impossible to take out these Nidus worms. Although I would get pretty close, it would take attempt after attempt after attempt until finally I got it. With the perfect balance of some SCVs repairing, some SCVs attacking enemies, and some SCVs focusing the Nidus worm, and also a good bit of micro, I finally killed the Nidus worms, and 11 SCVs escaped with a hell of a story to tell their brothers. The next mission is called Shatter the Sky. I must say these char missions have some pretty badass names. For this mission, I just have to take out 4 coolant towers, which then blow up and destroy all of the Zerg in the area. Although I do have to deal with the permanent Zerg creep again, there are 2 more expansions with full minerals that I can take. So right away I started to push the first tower and lure some enemies into my bunkers and stuff. 3 of my SCVs went incognito and were able to take out the first tower without anything attacking them, while these mutalisks were oblivious as to what was going on. After the first tower blew up, I started to go to work on this expansion down here to take over it. Also, these mineral pickups have their own custom model I've never seen before. It's just something interesting to note. I was wondering how the hell a drone survived that nuclear blast. This drone is an MVP. So I started moving forward towards the other coolant towers while at the same time taking the expansion up the top there. It turns out there's even another expansion on this map. My god, it actually feels so good to have minerals for once after the last mission. While I was distracted, I almost lost my base up the top here to an attack with an Ultralisk, but I ended up saving it. It wasn't too much of an issue. So for the coolant tower on the right, I tried to dropship a 5 SCV hit squad in to see if I can make a turret here and take out the tower. But there were so many enemies. I even tried to MLG hold position my mules on the ramp here. But yeah, there was just too many enemies. It wasn't working out. By this point I had 15,000 minerals, so I just sent an army of SCVs to take it out. It wasn't too much of a problem. I guess they thought I was manimuling because after they sent a Leviathan after me. I felt sorry for the SCVs that got poked by its tentacle, but I ended up taking it out. I then tried to go after the middle coolant tower but failed. So I went after the one on the left, which was a little bit easier, but it ended up taking 2 massive SCV armies to take it out. By this point everything was going pretty good. I was still rich and had enough minerals to make at least 2 fully maxed out SCV armies. So yeah, I just went for it and did the mineral trick to help me get through all of these enemies. So yeah, I took out the last coolant tower and ended the mission. I finally made it to the last mission called All In. I absolutely love this mission because you just get to chill out and defend against the Zerg. So I started off this mission by killing off all of my army. I focused too much on getting my defense down the bottom instead of the top, so I got overrun and had to restart. So I just used my factory and my barracks to help block off the entrances, and then just build flame turrets and bunkers behind them. I also got missile turrets up here because I think I remember the Zerg tries to attack you with mutas and overlord drops at some point. During this mission your base gets attacked by Nidus worms, so I just had to be careful of those. Every now and then the Queen of Blades herself, Kerrigan, comes to attack your base. So whenever she attacks my base, I just use the artifact power, and basically the artifact power just clears out all of the Zerg around your base and it does a ton of damage to Kerrigan. Eventually the Zerg went for an overlord drop, but what I wasn't prepared for was that the overlords come from every single direction. Then these overlords started pooping in my base for some reason, so I just yeeted them out with missile turrets. These SCVs ended up taking out a Nidus worm like true MCs. I decided to just cover my base in flame turrets because I had the minerals and it'll help me out with the Nidus worms a lot. I had no idea what these spine crawlers were doing. Kerrigan continued to try and attack me, but all I had to do really was just rebuild the wall after she was gone. I saw another spine crawler in the corner of my eye just casually going for a walk. The entrance up the top here gets hit a lot harder than the one down the bottom, so I just had to make sure to keep repairing everything. This mission kind of reminds me of Balloon's tower defense, where you just get to chill out and defend. I've always loved tower defense games. Towards the end, a bunch of Nidus worms pop up and swarm your base. But it doesn't matter because the mission just ends, and I guess the artifact power is ready. So they activate it, and I guess it just wipes out all of the Zerg on Char. But yeah, there it is. Starcraft 2 Wings of Liberty completed with only SCVs. I was actually kind of surprised myself that it's actually possible to do, because there were some very close missions that were down to the last mineral. Anyways, I just want to thank you all for watching. This was on casual difficulty the whole time, so I challenge anyone out there to try and complete this on normal. Anyways, see you later.